Yo, what's up? My name is Luxlight, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to adapt in Brawlhalla. If this video ends up helping you, make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, as I'm going to be doing a ton of guides to help you improve, and if you want any personal coaching from me, check out the link down below. Okay, so whenever you queue up for a game, you already know that like sometimes you run into like very passive players, very aggressive players, or maybe even like a very certain type of playstyle, or maybe it's like a Sidra player who goes off stage and they GC Insig on cannon, or like they're like a terrorist player who like approaches with SIGs or whatever, right? They have some sort of game plan, and maybe you don't really know the exact way to like punish them for it. Maybe you're constantly getting hit off for stuff, and you don't really know what to do. So today I'm just going to kind of go over like a bunch of different ways you can adapt to your opponents, how to kind of go about doing it, what you should be thinking about in game, and stuff like that. So to start off, right, obviously you need to know how your opponent's playing. So whenever you start off the game, you get your weapons, you're in neutral. It's all about trying to figure out how your opponent likes to approach you, or how your opponent likes to run away from you, or however, right? Just gather as much information. So the first kind of question I always ask in my game is my opponent someone who's gonna like be super aggressive, or someone who's gonna be more passive? So kind of what I look at is like, if I'm in neutral, what do they like to do? Are they more of like someone who's trying to like approach and go in for moves? Are they going for like sidelights? Are they going in for like bait options? Maybe they're playing like aerial, right? Where they're like in the air and on gauntlets are like looking for nairs or dares or sares or whatever, right? Or maybe there's someone who's more kind of scared to approach, and so they're kind of just waiting here. They might be like empty hopping, kind of just waiting for me to approach them, and maybe even if I like move up a little bit, they kind of start to back away, right? Or they're constantly trying to keep spacing, and they're trying to make me make the first move compared to them just rushing in and attacking me. That's going to give you a lot of insight, because let's say they're playing super aggressive. A super aggressive player usually is going to constantly run in and attack you, and so if you just kind of outspace them, wait for them to miss a move, and then punish them, that's going to be just easy punishes, and it's going to be a lot easier of a game. But also, if you know like how aggressive players play, you can read a lot more stuff off of them. For example, a lot of aggressive players, what they're going to do is they're going to do very aggressive dodges. So, for example, they might want to start dodging in. So if I'm playing something like Lance, and I know that like, hey, this person's going to be like a super aggressive player, they're constantly running in. Let's just say they miss like an inlight on gauntlets. So I satellite there, dash back, and then I already know that there's a chance they're going to dodge in. So because of that, right, because I know they're an aggressive player, I can like start kind of looking to like read very aggressive dodges, so like a dodge in, for example, which nets me all that damage for free. Something else they could do is something like a GC wake up, so they'll like spot dodge and then do some sort of attack. Let's just say because it's gauntlets, they'll do like a downlight. So I'll look something kind of like this, where they spot dodge and then do something like that. Which is why dashing back against a super aggressive player might be very important on Lance, because I can avoid, wake up options like this, but I can also punish very aggressive dodges like dodging in. Another thing they can do is like dodging up, so like they can dodge up and in, for example. And so like for that one, right, I might see it and then I might do like a Sarah, and then I'll start punishing like panic jumps and stuff like that. So kind of giving an idea of like how your opponent likes to play is very important, because that can lead to reading dodges, that can lead to kind of learning what they do in disadvantage state and how they think about the game. Now obviously this doesn't go for all players, but this is just a really great way to start off. It's just kind of figuring out, is your opponent aggressive or is your opponent passive? Okay, so after figuring out is your opponent an aggressive or a passive type of player, the next thing is to figure out what they do in disadvantage state. So disadvantage state simply is just whenever your opponent either doesn't have options, maybe they're in the air and they're almost out of options and they have to land to the ground, maybe they're off stage, maybe they're getting hit by a move and so they have to avoid it, or anything like that where they just kind of in a disadvantage state, or they're getting hit or whatever. That's when you have to kind of figure out what do they like to do in these kind of situations. And this goes for all different types of players. If you look at the number one mistakes video, something I talk about is whenever people like try to punish a super passive player, they send them to the corner of the wall and then they get hit off because the passive player decides to go ultra aggressive and they run and attack you. That's an example of what they do in disadvantage state. Someone can be passive and neutral, right, where they kind of stay away from you, but like when they get to the wall, they get kind of scared, so they want to rush into an attack, and they get all of a sudden super aggressive. That's something you have to adapt to and get used to and kind of figure out about players. You don't want to just rush in straight away thinking you know all the answers. You need to constantly look and gather information. So an example of this, if we go back to like the aggressive player, an example, if I'm finding someone super aggressive, chances are that they will do some sort of aggressive dodge. They can do a spot dodge wake up, they can do a dodge in, they can do a dodge up and in, right? They can also do any other option if they decide maybe in disadvantage they like to be more passive, so they might want to dodge away. So the good way to kind of figure this out is, let's say I hit my opponent, I will dash back, right? And then instead of like really trying to go for something, I'm more or less looking at my opponent and seeing what they do. For example, right, if it's a super aggressive player, they might dodge in. And so if I see them dodge in, that's something I can probably react to. So it'll kind of look like this, where I go this, go back, oh, dodge in, and then I try to punish it, right? And I'll get all that confirmed because they waste the dodge. Another example could be if they dodge up and in, right? Where I hit this, I back up, I see it up and in, so maybe I want to land with a dare like that to punish that. And maybe I can even do something afterward where I can like go back and maybe do like, while I do dare, do an in light afterwards, right? If I know they're not going to jump, is like other information you can get because they're a super aggressive player. They might not want to jump because they don't panic jump, so I can go for like an in light read. Something else they can do is they can spot dodge and do an attack, which is why dodging back is super important. Because if you hit them with a move, dash back, if they do a wake up, you obviously avoid the wake up. So a lot of the times, like people when they fight aggressive players, they'll kind of just stand here and wait, and then they get hit by a move because they can't react to it. So you have to dash back to reset yourself, and then you react to their move. Now, what about if an aggressive player isn't someone who wants to dodge in or wake up attack, and instead they actually decide to dodge away, right? That's something else you have to react to. Now, usually for this, because you're dodging back, right? Sorry, I have to up him on wake up. Let me turn off wake up. But if I dodge back and I see him dodge away, that's not really something I can just read, right? I can't really react to that and kind of go for something. So that's kind of when it changes, where when I hit them with a move, I see him dodge away, I kind of just reset and then kind of go back. And then when I hit him again and I see him dodge away, right? That's when I'm starting thinking, okay, this guy's a super aggressive player, but he likes to dodge away when getting hit. So maybe next time, right, and we'll just use this example, let's just say he's dodging left and he has like gauntlets, right? If I know he's going to be someone who's going to be more passive when they're dodging, whenever I hit them with a move, I'm going to kind of stand here, and that's when I'm going to go for a move. I'm not going to go for that automatically. I'm going to wait to see, are they dodging in a passive way, in which case then I can kind of take control over here and go for a read like that. Now, keep in mind, if I were to go for any type of read, so let's just go back to the aggressive example. Let's just say, for example, they dodge in, right? And I punish them for dodging in, right? So I go for like all this, get extra damage, build up like that. That's very easy for your opponent to realize, hey, I just got punished for a dodge in. So after you punish a dodge and disadvantage, right? Even if you get this kind of read, even if they've been doing it over and over again, you don't want to always go for that read, right? For example, you don't want to always just constantly go for that kind of read in neutral. Because, for example, what can happen is your opponent could be playing like something like gauntlets, and then they, instead of dodging in, they might want to dodge up. So when you go for something like this and try to like go for this confirm, they might just punish you with a stare. So it's really important that after you get this dodge read, even if you get it, right, after you punish them, do all this, that instead of constantly trying to go for it, you reset yourself and then wait to see what they do again. For example, if they dodge in again, that's when you can start punishing them heavily for it, because they're constantly doing the same thing again. But sometimes opponents who are also adapting to you, they realize, hey, I'm getting hit for something. So maybe they want to change up and they do a dodge up. And so now I have to punish with like a nair or recovery or something, right? So really important that you kind of get a read off your opponent. And then after you get the read, reset yourself. Don't constantly go for the read and try to autopilot on that one thing. I know a lot of players who, like, for example, they play axe and then their opponent like dodges kind of aggressively. So they dodge down. And then the first thing they always think of is to always go for this, right? Which, yeah, they dodge down, it's fine, but then sometimes they mix it up and then they go like to the right and they're on gauntlets, right? And so when they go for this, they lose this, right? This doesn't hit, and then now their opponent's set up to like run in with a Sarah or something afterwards. Or maybe they're on like something like, you know, guitars, and whenever they're playing guitars, all they have to do is just land with a nair. They don't even have to dodge because they can just land with a nair and then catch them off for it. So like, kind of looks like this, where they have guitars, they would wake up with a nair, right? They don't really have a dodge, and so I hit them, and I get hit for it, right? That's stuff you have to look out for, and especially they can also do something like wake up with dares, right? They don't always have to wake up with like a nair. This will still catch, right? If I'm in like the certain position where I'm kind of like backed up here, right? That still catches me. So going for the same read over and over again can get you punished. So you want to make sure that your opponent's always doing that read. So if you see them dodge in, right, twice in a row, then punish the dodge in, but then don't do it again, reset, figure out what they're going to do next time, and then punish that. The thing with adapting is that it's always changing. People are going to try to adapt to you, and you're going to be trying to adapt to them. So it's really important that you understand hey, even though I have this read, I need to make sure they're constantly doing this before I start rushing in. Okay, so right here, I just want to kind of go over this tournament game to give you a better example of what I'm talking about. So if we're playing as Rika, right, we just get hit here, and we do a wake-up attack. We see our opponent rushing in and constantly going for a punish. So we know our opponent's trying to punish us for being an aggressive type of player. You know, someone who's going to wake up or someone who's going to dodge in. So that's something to keep in mind, that maybe I want to be a more passive dodger against him so that I can kind of bait him out. So maybe he goes for an aggressive option and then I can get a punish off of him. Right here, we get a punish off our opponent, and then we're going to wait to see what they do. In this case, he does nothing. He doesn't do a single dodge. He just kind of fast falls down and resets. That's really important because against a lot of side players, people do that so then side players can't really get our dodge read, right? Because a lot of side players are looking for these kind of dodge reads or dodge reactions, and then when you don't do anything, they get kind of confused. So in order to punish that, it kind of requires you to be a little more aggressive. Maybe do like a side light, then dash in light, or in light into nair, which will be confirmed because they don't have a, because they're not dodging, right? They're gonna get a 1-frame hit, and then afterwards you can even do like a Sarah. So back here, we wait, we get in our punish, and notice how Rika, instead of just waiting here, he instantly goes in for in light, right? And he's looking for these nairs too. It's because his opponent didn't dodge, so he's thinking, okay, this guy's trying to bait me out by not dodging. So I'm going to kind of get really aggressive and try to punish this dodge. Now, in this case, this Sarah doesn't really work, right? Because he gets out of it. But we do get this free confirmed just because he doesn't dodge. And he still doesn't dodge. He still fast fall. So he still had the read correct. It's just he should have kept in mind that he did fast fall. So maybe after the nair, he should have went back down and try to go for an inlight again. So here he gets punished for it. He dodges down, which is something he's been doing. And then notice here how Sapphire is punishing him for being aggressive again, right? We saw last time where he got inlighted for waking up constantly. Right here, he dodges down. He gets to punish on this. He did this last time. I didn't really show in the game, but he did dodge down every single time off stage. And then he's instantly punishing him for trying to get back to stage with that nair. And then he tries to wake up with a D-light, which you see Sapphire just backs away, punishes it, like I said before on the Gauntlet example, and then just gets this for free. Right, and that's just like a free, just clean, easy clip, right? Right here, just once again, super aggressive, constantly trying to go for moves, so we just kind of wait, get a free punish off, back off stage again, kind of waiting, trying to go for like a read for him to get back to stage, doesn't really work. Right, kind of just neutral again, and once again, you kind of see here with Sapphire's kind of movement. Look at how he's moving against his opponent, because he knows his opponent likes to be really aggressive. So he's like trying to move in and out and try to kind of look for these punish options. Here he goes for a miss because he should have gone for in light instead of D-light. D-light is only going to punish him for going in the air. I guess he thought he was going to panic jump or something. So he goes for a read. And then notice here how he was kind of waiting to see if his opponent's doing something. Right, this is kind of where the mix-up happens, where he's like, he already punished him for not doing a dodge. So he kind of waits here. He sees a jump, and he's like, okay, are you going to dodge? No? Then I'm going to go for recovery. And then he goes for this confirmed, because he knows, hey, my opponent's still not dodging, so I'm going to go for this nair afterwards. Maybe even a weapon throw, getting really aggressive. They're kind of waiting, goes for aggressive move, Sapphire just punishes him, right? Like I said, aggressive playstyle he's getting reacted to, and for Sapphire, he's getting reacted to for not really doing as many dodges. Right, and this is like just how a first stock kind of go, right? There's a first dodge. That's something interesting, right? That may be something you want to read, like the fact he dodged it in there. Right, so now he's maybe trying to mix up. Here, getting Stu punished for kind of going for aggressive options. Goes for an end-light punish. And just waiting here, and then punishes him for trying to get back to stage. But overall, you kind of see where the difference of like adapting is really important here. Where Sapphire's trying to punish Rika for being really aggressive and constantly going in for these moves, and especially with the wake-up attacks. He did a lot of wake-ups that he got punished for. Also, off stage, you like to dodge down and try to get back to stage instantly. As for Rika, he's trying to punish Sapphire for not really dodging as much. He's just not dodging at all. After every hit, he's not dodging. And whenever he switches weapons, he's kind of looking for, are you going to dodge against Gauntless, for example, which he just sees a jump, so he goes for recovery, and then he goes for an air afterwards, knowing, hey, my opponent's just not dodging. So the last thing I want to talk about is just certain patterns you see in your opponent. So, for example, let's just say we're fighting Azuri again. Or actually, better yet, let's say we're fighting a Lance player, because I think a lot of, like, lower level players kind of struggle with this. Let's say we're fighting a Lance player, right? And every single time this Lance player is in the air, something we notice is that whenever they land, they like to land with a Sarah. This is kind of hard for beginner players to kind of get used to, and especially if you played Smash, if you know Meta Knight, you know a lot of players struggle with these kind of big, long hitboxes in the air, right? Where a lot of people just kind of spam them out, and they don't really know what to do against them, right? This is something you can adapt to, right? If my opponent's in the air, and I know they like to land with Sarah, that's something I'm going to keep in mind, to where I'm going to kind of space myself, or like, let's just say I'm like directly above them, right? They're in the air, right? I'm going to kind of space myself where I'm kind of avoiding that Sarah, and then looking for this punish. because obviously on Lance, if you notice the aerial hitbox, like aerial hitboxes, they have Dare, they have Stare, and then they have Nair. A lot of this is really easy to punish if you kind of just stay back, right? Like if I'm watching them land to the ground, they land with Stare or they land with Dare, they kind of always end up in the same kind of position. So if I always see them in the air, I kind of just stand over here, right? And then kind of look here where it's like Stare, I can punish that with side light. Here I can still punish that with side light, right? Or even if they land with like a Nair, they try to like land in a Nair. A lot of people try to land in Nair, they like try to get really close to you when they're doing it. I don't know why for some reason I couldn't do attacks there, but like whenever they land with a Nair, right? A lot of them like try to drift forwards, and I actually still can attack. This is so weird. Well, I can't attack, but they'll try to land with a Nair, and then they'll kind of get close to you, and then that's when, you know, you can also just go for like an in-light punish, for example. So, going for punishes on Lance aerial kit kind of depends, because it's not like the Lance like down kit where you kind of stay right here. You might want to stay a little bit further to avoid that Sarah range or that Dare range. And that's something else you can adapt to, is like if your opponent's playing super floaty and you know they like to go for the aerial type of moves whenever they're landing, just avoid the aerial moves and you can punish that. Same for like certain SIGs, like for example on Artemis. Something a lot of Artemis players do is whenever they see someone get low percent, and this goes for Mordex players, this goes for like a lot of different types of players, whenever they see someone go to low percent, their first idea is to just kind of use like unpunishable SIG, right? Like a SIG that's really hard to punish. So for example on Artemis, this would be like side SIG, where they kind of stay back. And that's something else you can adapt to. If you know, for example, if I'm going to approach Artemis and I'm low HP, you know, I'm like getting to that dark orange range and they want to kill me with side SIG, then I'm going to start like playing around that, where I kind of like get close here and kind of bait out a SIG and then try to get above them so that I can punish from the air with axe, right? And then same thing for like if I'm in the air, maybe they want to go for like an insig. That's something else I can still bait out. Like I can still bait out an insig by kind of like positioning myself where I'm like in kind of that range to get hit by an insig, but then I just go the other way, right? Where I stay like kind of right above it and then I get right below them and then punish them, right? And then maybe I try to read something afterwards and go for a kill option myself. So getting reads on like stuff like SIGs or like what moves they like to go for is really important too, because that's extra information you can get. If you know someone always loves to approach with like sword set sidelight, right? You can space yourself against sword sidelight and constantly set up for punishes against that. A good example too is like on bow, right? If I know my opponent is like wanting to stay kind of like far away on bow, they're kind of looking for like these D-light pokes. They're not really looking for anything else. So that's something to keep in mind, where I'm like, if I space against D-light, I can probably bait them out with a D-light, right? Like if I know they're gonna go for D-light, I can kind of like put myself in a situation where it's like, hey, you can hit me on D-light, and then I jump and then I try to punish them for it. Or like, for example, they may be playing, you know, a weapon like Spear, and they might constantly be going for stuff like D-light, right? If they want to constantly go for D-light, then I know that I'm kind of safe on ground. So maybe something I do on Axe is like, if I know they're going to approach, right? They're probably going to approach with D-light, so I'm going to kind of bait with a jump and then try to look for like an in-light poke or a D-light poke afterwards. So it kind of look like this, right? Where they're like trying to approach me, I'm kind of baiting with the air, and then I go for something afterwards. Or they want to approach from the ground, it would be this different situation where, like, let's say I'm fighting, you know, a sword player. They want to approach me with like a D-light instead of like a side light. Then I can start punishing a D-light by like staying on the ground, getting kind of close, and then kind of baiting with like a jump afterwards. So like I kind of like get here and kind of wait for something like this and then go for a punish afterwards. Just kind of figure out what moves your opponent likes to go for. So are they like more floaty? Are they more passive? Do they like to go for a certain SIG? Or, you know, are they more of an aggressive type? Are they more of a passive type? How do they dodge? Do they dodge aggressively? Do they dodge passively? Something else you can do is like in neutral. Let's say, you know, I hit them with an inlight. When they're near off stage, how do they like to recover? Do they like to recover high? Because that's something you can punish. Do they like to recover low? Because that's also something you can punish. Or even if they're on like the edge of the wall, what do they do on the edge of the wall when they're right here? Do they like to kind of just sit and like empty hop? Or do they like to rush in with like a move instantly and try to like cover up for, you know, getting hit to the edge of the wall by trying to take all the stage back with a move? Right? That's all stuff you can read and get information on your opponent. That's why you shouldn't just constantly rush in and your opponent and try to aggress everything, because they can easily adapt to that. But same thing, if you kind of wait and gather information, that's when you can start figuring out, maybe I shouldn't rush in, maybe I should wait for a free punish, or maybe that's when I can rush in and go for a punish. Right? It's all about kind of asking the question, can this be something that I can punish later? Is this something my opponent's doing constantly? Should I be like trying to go for a punish on this in general, right? Like, is this something I can abuse later? Like, for example, let's say my opponent's like someone who always dodges away. Or it's like someone who panic jumps. Let's just say that. Let's say there's someone who panic jumps. That may be something you can punish like right now, right? Where it's like, if it's low percent, yeah, if they panic jump after missing a move on like wide HP, that's something you could punish with like a Sarah, but maybe you want to leave that habit. Maybe you want to punish them for doing it later in stock. right? Because that's something you can kind of wait for and then punish them for. That's why in like the first stock, a lot of people don't really go for anything because they're trying to gather information, and then later in stocks they're going to punish them for that information that they haven't exploited yet, right? Because if I try to like throw all my eggs in one basket and be like, oh, I know you're doing this and this and this and this, and I get one stock off, there's still two more stocks where I have to kind of repeat myself while my opponent already gathered a lot of information. So adapting is obviously a very advanced topic, and it kind of goes very much in depth. But to kind of start off, it's kind of the question, is my opponent aggressive? Are they passive? What moves do they like to go for? And what do they do in disadvantage? And then just making sure, like, after you punish them for something, you reset and kind of repeat yourself and kind of figure out, are they changing up? Are they mixing up at all? And if they are, you have to punish that too. But if they're not mixing up, then that's when you can kind of go all out and go for, like, you know, some crazy string. And you can even go more advanced in this. Like, if someone's, like, always dodging in, what do they do after they dodge in? If I hit them with a move, after they dodge in, do they like to panic jump? Do they like to fast fall? Do they like to wake up? Like, these are all questions you can ask yourself and constantly build more and more information. For example, if I hit someone with a dodge, right? If I get a dodge read off of someone, a lot of the times what they do on Lance is they try to panic jump instantly. So a good example would be like they would dodge in, so I hit them with string, they panic jump, so I hit them with Sare, and then they try to fast fall, so I hit them with dare, or maybe a ground pound or something, right? That's like 3 different reads I can get just by like asking what do they do afterwards. Okay, so this video is long enough as it is, so I just want to go off over one example. A good example would be against a Sidra player who likes to GC Insig off stage. If I ever see my opponent like approaching off stage and they're on Sidra, the first thing I'm going to think about is if they're going to GC Insig. And so what I do is I kind of like position myself right above and look for these kind of dare punishes. And if you kind of time this right, it'll kind of look something like this, where you're kind of waiting and then you go for this dare punish, right? And a lot of Sidra players don't really know what to do here, right? Because they just think, oh, I'm going to GC Insig, you know, I'm going to be standing right here, so it's going to be unpunishable, right? And which would be true, but also if I know they're going to do this, then maybe I want to like dash in, kind of like adapt to them, and then like go for a punish. Obviously not going to stack like that, but like kind of position myself above them and constantly go for this, and maybe even try to punish a panic jump afterwards, right? This is something you can punish. And a lot of people don't think it's punishable because they stand right here. They don't really think about the fact that like, hey, if my Sidra is like approaching, I can kind of wait here, right? And kind of wait for this kind of option. Obviously you should kind of bait them out. You shouldn't like jump instantly, but you kind of like stand here, wait for that GC, and then punish. So it'll look kind of something like that. You can even go for like a ground pound too, like that, just for like a freer kill, right? Especially if you're playing something like bow, ground pound's gonna kill super early against stuff like that, especially because they won't have a dodge. So yeah, overall, that's kind of all I really want to talk about. Just kind of give you a lot of ideas on how to adapt. It's kind of a really hard concept to like go over in general because there's so much you can read, right? Trying to ask these kind of questions is like you can add so many different questions. You can figure out what they do in advantage state, what they do in disadvantage state, what they do after hitting a move, what they do, you know, during the strings. Do they like to go for a certain type of reads? There's so much you can like think about, even where they position on stage. Like they can position themselves here and try to like bait you to go off stage against gauntlets, or they can be a more center control player, right, where they want to have all the stage. Maybe they want to be in the air on axe and approaching with dares and stuff like that. All of this is stuff you can kind of read and be like, this is something I can adapt to and punish. And then also the question of like, will they switch it up, right? Because after they get punished for it, they might want to switch up. They may want to play more grounding and stuff like that. So hopefully it kind of gives you like a better idea on like how to go about adapting, how you can go for these kind of reads, and sort of like the mistakes some players do whenever they try to go for this, and how to like make sure you don't make those mistakes yourself. Yeah, anyways, if this video ended up helping you, make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, let me know what you want to see next, and I will see you in the next one.